Hi guys, welcome back to the session. In the today's session, we will learn about config files and XML package of Automation Anywhere A2019. So the agenda for today's session will be, we will learn what is config file, how to create a config file for Automation Anywhere projects, how to read data from config file using the actions get single node and get multiple nodes from XML package. And during our demo, we will also learn about the step action which is used to group multiple of actions together. So let's get started by understanding this config file. So this config file contains all configuration information of the project such as application URL, username, password, path locations, log messages, etc. Now the question arises why to store these data in an config file rather than providing the hard-coded value in the project. So let's say that you're working on dev environment with a particular application URL, but after few days you'll have to work on some other environment where this application URL changes. Now in such case, if you have provided the hard-coded value of the application URL, you'll have to move through all the actions of the project where you have used the application URL as an hard-coded value and change the values over there. Whereas if you have stored all these values inside the config file, then the input changes can be done at one single go using the config files. So it is always a best practice to store all the configuration data of the project inside a config file. Now the next question with us is how to create a config file. Well, there are several ways to create a config file. One of the best way is to use the XML files, which holds the configuration data in XML format. And this XML, which stands for Extensible Markup Language, is a markup language designed to store and transport data. So let me show you one sample XML file. So this is the configuration data in an XML format where this project is set to be the start node. Environment is the parent node. This name is set to be the attribute. And this URL, user email, user password and screenshot path are set to be the child nodes. So whatever action you want to perform on this XML file, such as read single node, read multiple nodes, insert, update or delete nodes, etc. So all these actions can be performed using the XML package of Automation Anywhere A2019. So let's quickly create a project in Automation Anywhere to understand this XML package and config files better. So this is the XML file where I have provided the configuration data of the project for the environments dev and QA, and the configuration data I have provided is the URL of the application which I want to launch, then the user email and the password to log into the application, and the screenshot path in case I want to take the screenshot. So let's quickly create a project in Automation Anywhere to see how we can fetch the data from this XML file and use them further in the project. So let's move to the control room of Automation Anywhere A2019. Let's quickly create a new bot. So for that we will move to bots, my bots, and create new bot from here. And let's give the name of the bot as config file and XML demo, and let's click on create and edit. And here we are in the edit taskbar page. Let's begin to add actions in our project. So first action I'm going to use today is the step action, which is used to group various actions together, and it is also one of the best practices to work on the Automation Anywhere projects. So let me show you how this works. So let's drag and drop it over here. Let's move to list view and let's give a title over here. So let's give the title as read config data, and under this step action I'm going to add all the actions required to read config data. Now moving ahead, and now I'm going to work on the XML package. So under this XML package we have multiple of actions present. Let's begin with the start session. So let's drag and drop it over here. So this start session is used to start the XML session. session name it has taken as default. Next we'll have to provide the data source either in the form of file or text. So we can provide the XML data, we can provide this XML data here in this text box as well, but we'll proceed with this file as of now. So let's select this file and we'll choose this desktop file and we'll provide the path of this config file. So let's click on browse, and from here let's select this config file, let's click on open, and it is done. Now once we use this start session, at the end we need to use the end session as well. So let's add this end session as well. Now we will add actions to read data from this config file. So for that we have the action get single node. So let's add this get single node action. Session name it took as default, that's fine. Next we'll have to provide the XPath expression. So this XPath we have already learnt in the previous sessions, and the XPath is used to navigate through elements and attributes in an XML document. There are two types of XPath. First is absolute XPath and second is relative XPath. Absolute XPath starts from start node and goes to the target element, whereas the relative XPath can start from any reference element and goes to the target element. In case of absolute XPath, the expression starts with a single slash, and in case of relative XPath, the expression starts with double slash. So now let's create the XPath to fetch the configuration data. So let's write the XPath expression to read this URL value. Now I will begin to write the absolute XPath, which begins with a single slash. So put a single slash and then provide the start node, which in our case is project. So let's provide the start node as project. Then the next node is environment. So I have provided here environment. Now since here we have two environment with attribute name equal to dev and the next attribute as name equal to QA, and since we wish to fetch this URL as of now from the dev environment, so what I'm going to provide here in the brackets, I'm going to provide the attribute name equal to and its value as dev. So that's done, and then put a slash again and provide the node URL which we wish to fetch. So this is our absolute XPath is ready. Next, let's see how to write the relative XPath. So relative XPath starts with double slash. So put a double slash, and it need not to be started with the start node. So I can start from the environment only. So write the environment node and again the attribute name equal to dev, and then put a slash and then provide the URL node. So this is our relative XPath which we will use in our project. Relative XPath is more robust than the absolute one. So let's copy this one from here, and I'm going to provide this XPath expression over here. And let's assign the output to a variable. The value which we will get from the XPath, this URL which we will get from this XPath, let's assign it to a variable. So create a variable from here. Let's give the name of the variable as URL, which is of type string, and let's click on create and select. In a similar way, we want to fetch this user email, password and screenshot path as well. So what I'm going to do, I will copy this one from here. Let's copy this action from here and let's paste it 3 more times. And in the next action of get single node, I want to fetch the value of user email. So let's copy this one and I'm going to provide here in the XPath expression as this one, which is going to fetch the user email from the dev environment, and let's assign it to a variable. So create variable, let's give the name as user email and let's click on create and select. The next node we want to fetch from the XML file is the user password. So let's copy this one from here, and I will change the XPath expression to this, which will fetch the user password for the dev. And again, I'm going to assign it to a variable, and let's click on create and select. Now the last one, I want to fetch the value of screenshot path. So let's copy this one from here, and in the expression let's modify it to this one to fetch the value of screenshot path from the XML document, and let's assign the value to the variable. Let's give the name over here, and let's click on create and select. So all done, we have read all these values from this XML document. Now we want to process this data in our project. So let me show you how we can do that. So we can minimize this one, and again I'm going to use the another step action. So let's drag and drop it over here. Now this previous step action contains all the actions to read the configuration data. Now the next step action which I have added is going to log in to the application. So under this step action, I'm going to provide all the actions required to log into the application. So first of all, we want to launch this URL. I have provided the URL of the Facebook. So we want to launch this URL. So for that, I want to use the launch action. So let's drag and drop this launch action under this step action, and let's provide the details. Now we will use the URL over here which we read from the config file and stored it inside the URL variable. So I'm going to provide the URL variable from over here. So press F2, and from here let's select this URL and click on insert. Browser I'm going to choose as the Chrome. I want to work on the Chrome browser. Now once this Facebook application will be launched, we'll have to provide the email address and password and click on login. So for that we'll use the capture action. We have already learnt about this capture action in our previous sessions. So from the recorder I want to use this capture action. So let's add it over here, and from the object detail let's select the window, and from the drop down, so the Facebook window is not present as of now, so let's refresh the windows, and it has been done. Now from the drop down let's select this Facebook window, and let's click on capture object. Now from here we want to capture this email text box. So mouse over here until and unless you get this red rectangular box. Since I get this one, let's click over here, and it is getting captured. All done. Now we'll move to actions, and in the action I want to set text. I want to set text in this email text box with the user email which we have read from this configuration file as an XPath expression and assigned it to user email variable. So the same user email variable I want to use here. So press F2, and from the drop down let's select this user email. Click on yes, insert. Let's collapse this one, and again I want to use this capture action, and this time also I want to use this Facebook. Let's click on capture object, and now I want to capture this password text box, and it has been captured. Next, in this action I want to set text as the variable. Press F2, and from here let's select this user password which we read from the XML file. Let's click on yes, insert, and next I want to click on the login. So again we'll select from the windows as this Facebook and click on capture object, and let's click on this login. Now in this action I want to simply click, so let's select the left click action from here. Now once I log into the application, I want to capture a screenshot as well. So from this screen package, I want to use this capture window action to capture the screenshot. So let's select the window, and from the drop down, let's select this currently active, which will capture the screenshot for the currently active window. Now I want to store the screenshot in the file path which we have provided in the configuration data. Screenshot path we have provided like this. So I want to use this data which we have already stored inside the variable screenshot path in our project. So here you see we already have the screenshot path present. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to provide the file path. So press F2 and from here, from the drop down, let's select this screenshot path. Let's click on yes, insert. And my screenshot path is this. After this, we need to provide the file name as well. So here I'm going to provide a slash and let's provide the file name as image.png. So my screenshot will be stored in this location. So my project is ready now. First of all, it's going to read the entire data from the configuration file, from the XML file which we have, and store it inside the variable, and then it will use those variables to log into the application. So let's quickly run this project to see how it works. I'm going to close this Facebook application. Automation Anywhere bot is going to open it on its own, and I will close this config file as well. So let's save the bot and let's quickly run it to see how it works. So let's run this one. And my project is running now. It is reading the data from the configuration file. You can see get single nodes are in progress. Now it is launching the Facebook application. Once launched, it's going to provide the email ID and the password and click on login. And then it's going to capture the screenshot. So it has been done. Let's move back to control room and let's click on close. Let's quickly check the screenshot as well. So let's move over here and this is the folder. This is the file path where we get this image. So let's open this one and this is the screenshot which got captured. So in this way our bot read entire data from the XML file and used those data further in the project to log into the application. Now we'll look into some other scenario. Let me open the configuration file again. So this is our config file. Let me open it. So as of now, we use the action get single node to get a single node at a particular time. So we used 4 times get single node to get URL, user email, user password and the screenshot. Now let's say that there is a requirement to check whether these two URLs are working fine or not. So in this case, what we can do, we can fetch both these URLs at one go. So how to do that? So for that we'll have to use get multiple nodes, which is going to fetch both these node values. So let me show you how we can work on that. So for that we'll move again to the XML package and here we have the action get multiple nodes, which is used to fetch multiple XML nodes. So let's add this action get multiple nodes and here we need to provide the XPath expression. So let's say that I want to fetch the URL, this URL as well and this URL as well. So for that what expression we should write, what XPath expression we should write. So I'm going to write the XPath expression as 2 times slash and then the environment. And since we want to fetch both the URLs now, so we don't require to provide the attribute name. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put slash and then provide the URL. So this relative XPath should work to fetch both the URLs. Let me show you how it works. So I'm going to provide the XPath expression from here. And next we need to select the option to get each node as text value, XPath expression or specific attribute name. So yes, we want to fetch the text value of the URL, this URL and this URL. So we are going to select this text value and to get all these values we'll have to use a loop action. Let's add this loop action over here and from the iterator let's select the iterator type as for each node in XML dataset. And let's assign the current row to a variable. So from the drop down, I'm going to take the variable as the prompt assignment. So when the loop will run for the first time, we'll get the first URL, that is this one. And when the loop will run for the second time, we'll get the next URL. So from here to get this URL, what I'm going to do, I'm going to use a message box. So let me add a message box over here for the debug purpose, and in the message to display I'm going to use the prompt assignment, which will hold the value of the current URL from this loop. Now since we want to launch both these URLs to check whether these two URLs are working fine or not, so I'm going to add a launch action. So let me add this launch action as well, and in the URL I'm going to use this time as the prompt assignment. Let's click on yes, insert, and the browser I'm going to choose as the Chrome. So what we are doing, we are fetching multiple values using this get multiple nodes action with this XPath expression. Then we added this loop action to loop through each node in XML dataset and assign the results to this prompt assignment variable. Then we displayed this variable inside the message box, and in a similar way we are launching this variable URL in the browser Chrome. So I'm going to disable this step as of now. It is not required. So I'm going to disable this one, and let's see how this bot works as of now. So I'm going to close this application and I'm going to close this config file as well. And let's save this one and let's quickly run the bot to see how it works. And my bot is running now, and it is inside the loop action, and we got our first URL from the loop. So let's click on close and it will be launched. So you see the URL is getting launched. Then the loop iterated for the next time and we got the next URL from the config file. Let's click on close and it will try to launch this URL as well, but since this is not a valid URL, so it didn't work. But we were able to fetch, let's close this one, we were able to fetch multiple nodes using this get multiple nodes action, and from this loop action we were able to fetch the current node value from this prompt assignment variable in the message box section and the launch website action. So that's all for this session, guys. In this way you can work on the config files and the XML package of Automation Anywhere. Hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, give it a like and share with your friends and hit the bell button to get the updates on the latest videos. And if you have not yet subscribed to our channel, please subscribe to our channel as well. And thank you, and I will see you soon in the next one. Bye bye.